G'day, Geography, U10, how are we? Today's lesson is going to be looking at the human well-being. We're going to be looking at the skill of mapping today to do with human well-being. So as usual, the first thing I'd like you to do is copy down the learning intention and success criteria for today. So our learning intention is to investigate ways of measuring and mapping human well-being, and we're going to be doing that by analysing maps to determine trends in spatial variations of human well-being. Again, a little bit of a mouthful, so we've remember that spatial variations means the differences and variations of something over different locations. So for example, we could compare poverty rates in India and Australia, and that would be looking at the spatial variations of poverty. And remember that trends are patterns or changes that we can notice in data. The first thing I want you to look at and consider is a skill we call a Choropleth Map. So this shows spatial patterns by using dark and light shades of similar colors to show you something. So as we can see in the map key here, this legend is showing us from very high to low Human Development Index ratings. So HDI is something or another measurement tool similar to GDP, which a lot of countries use to measure their well-being. This is what the United Nations uses, and the HDI measures health in terms of life expectancy, education, and they base that off literacy levels, so how well you can read and write, and they also base it off income, which we know is our GDP. So what we can see here is that some countries like Australia are very high, and indeed other continents like Europe and North America are quite high. Then we look at about Asia and South America, who are the high to medium, and then a low continent there being Africa. Asia is also mostly low as well, if you disregard Japan and certain half of Russia. So looking at this map, you'll need to look at that to answer your worksheets, which will be attached later, but more on that later. The second map we're looking at today is a Cardogram map. So what this map does is it displays country at roughly their correct geographical size and position. However, the size is moderated massively depending on what is being measured. So this Cardogram map, as it looks a little bit funny, is measuring the proportion of population living in poverty. So as we can see, the bigger something is, the more of it has. So the bigger something is here, the more poverty there is, and the smaller it is, the less poverty there is. Now Australia here is quite small, as you can see, showing that we have very low poverty rates in Australia, but the two continents with the biggest being Africa and Asia here. And certain countries are bigger than others. So for example, India here is quite large, and then we've got some other countries such as Egypt showing up there quite predominantly. Again, Europe is quite small, North America is quite small, and South America isn't too big. The only big country really standing out there is Brazil. So these colors represent different regions of the world here. Our last graph that we are going to look at today is measuring well-being health in Australia. So what this image is doing is, again, it's color-coded each state of Australia, and in it are different ways of measuring human well-being. So if we look at the legend here, we're measuring it by incident of melanoma rate, which is skin cancer due to excessive sun exposure. We also have the proportion of children being immunized as a percentage. Now, that's more important than ever. Median elective surgery waiting time. So that's in days. Elective surgery. So elective surgery is when you opt in to get something surgically removed. So say, for example, you want plastic surgery, or anything that isn't considered an emergency is you can think of as elective surgery. Adult daily smoking rate, so that's the percentage of adults who smoke per day, and then you have the proportion of the emergency department patients seen on time. Okay, so that's if you call an ambulance, how quickly is it likely to get there, or any sort of emergency health service like a helicopter or something like that. We have arrows showing higher, lower, significantly lower, or equal across all the states here. And you'll need to use this to help you answer this worksheet here. So what we've got here, again, I've got the two graphs, or the three graphs, sorry, that we're going to look at. I'm just going to make those large and proper for you. So this is what we've got here. We've got our three maps here. Now I've got my computer in dark mode, so yours probably won't look quite like this. But what I would like you guys to do is look at the following maps that we have on the PowerPoint slide there, and I would like you guys to answer and fill in this worksheet. Now I'm going to quickly go over each question and what it's asking of you. So it says here source 8.6 Choropleth Map. That's you looking at source 8.6, the Choropleth Map here, and you can also see that on your slideshow here if you want it a little bit bigger there. Okay. So looking at that map, I want you to answer these two questions. So one, list some trends in spatial variations regarding HDI. So we're going to look at some trends here. So trends are patterns. Remember, spatial variations is looking at differences between different locations. So what are some patterns we can see across different locations in regards to HDI? So there's certain locations that are higher or lower than others. If that's the case, list some trends that you can see there. Then I want you to provide some reasoning as why you think HDI, or the Human Development Index that measures health, education and income, might be low in the continents of Africa and Asia. Once you have done that, move on to source 8.7, which is the cartogram. So the cartogram is this here, this map there. Again, we want you to list some trends in spatial variations regarding poverty. So which areas of the world have more or less of, is looking at any trends or patterns you can see there. And then I want you to ask yourself which areas of the world are living in the least amount of poverty, and I want you to justify your answer. Remembering justify means give reasons why. So I want you to give me reasons why you think, say you've identified which areas have the least amount of poverty. So for example there we can see Australia's quite low, we can see North America's low, in Europe. So why do you think that is? And then the last question is looking at the infograph here, which is source 8.8. And I want you to examine each state's health statistics and justify which state would be the best to live in relation to health, because this is measuring mostly health in Australia as a wellbeing agent. And I want you to give it at least two reasons. So examine each state's health statistics. So you're going to look at each state's health statistics across melanoma, proportion of children immunized, the median elective surgery, smoking, and proportion of emergency department patients seen on time. Justify then. So remember, justify means give reasons why. Which state you think would be the best to live in. Okay, so you might refer to this graph. You might say this state has the least amount of people smoking. It also gets you seen as emergency patients on time, etc., etc. Then I would like you to move on to question 2, which is why might the Northern Territory have the lowest emergency department patients seen on time? So the Northern Territory is in light green here, and they have the lowest of 52%. Why do you think that is? Justify some reasons for me there. Once you have done that, submit your answers onto Google Classroom for your teacher to mark. Don't forget to evaluate your learning intention and success criteria in your books, and that'll be all for today. Thank you.